African Development Bank launched the Feed Africa strategy in 2015 to turn around this exact situation. TAAT that we're talking about today is the flagship of the Feed Africa strategy. And for good reasons. You cannot build competitive agricultural value chains when you have only a third of the world's, of the average, global average of staples that feed the world. Africa is the only continent where the yield of maize, average 1.5 tons, is the same as it was in the US in 1920. 1920, the yield of maize in the US was 1.5 tons. We're the only continent that is still stuck in history. Ladies and gentlemen, it's unacceptable. But we have heard good news today from our president, Dr. Adesina, and I know we're going to hear a lot more from the beautiful video that was done about how TAAT is helping to change all that. We have heard how the TAAT has provided 12 million farmers with improved climate-smart agricultural technologies. We have also heard how in Ethiopia, lowland irrigated wheat went from 5,000 hectares in 2018 to 2019 wheat season to 645,000 hectares. There's a very nice story I would like to tell you later on about that increase. It's a brilliant story. This year, Ethiopia became self-sufficient. We also have heard about Sudan, reduced wheat imports by 50% within 2 years. The story is the same for maize, for cassava, for rice, for sorghum, aquaculture, for high iron beans, for orange flex sweet potatoes, small ruminants, and enabler compact. We have made progress, definitely. But often, progress has to be quantified and qualified. We have made progress in some countries, but we can replicate this success in many other countries. The progress we have made was because the TAAT compacts worked very hard to establish thousands of demo trials. They produced hundreds of thousands of breeder, foundation, and certified seeds and breeds and fingerlings, hundreds of thousands of breeds and fingerlings. We saw the TAAT compacts train seed companies and extension agents. We saw them build robust innovation platforms with partners. We have started on the right path. You also heard from Innocent and from others that TAAT has been on the front line of the African Emergency Food Production Facility, or AFPF as we call it, the $1.5 billion facility of the bank to produce 38 million tons of food by giving 20 million farmers seeds and fertilizers so that we can increase the food supply that has been lost from the war in Ukraine. Africa has lost an estimated 30 million tons of wheat and maize from the war in Ukraine. We also received the good news from the Gates Foundation of the independent evaluation of the TAAT clearinghouse. The evaluation revealed that TAAT has been able to mainstream best technologies into $1 billion worth of bank lending in the last 3 years. You know, the Gates Foundation gave $6 million for those 3 years, and they were able to leverage it 166 times because $1 billion of lending was done because of that money. I'm delighted that the Gates Foundation announced another $9 million in the TAAT clearinghouse for the next 3 years. Let's give it up to the Gates Foundation, please. I know Lawrence Kent will join us virtually tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be able to thank him in person. The African Development Bank has reaffirmed its confidence in TAAT by investing another $30 million from the regional public good windows of ADF 15 for the next 5 years. We're also discussing with the BMZ and NORAD for TAAT to expand the scope of countries to include not just ADF, but also non-ADF countries. Funny enough, some countries like Angola are also considered to be non-ADF, but we all know that Angola needs a lot of help. You may have also heard that the African Development Bank is organizing with the chair of the African Union Commission a Feed Africa Summit, which the chair of the Commission, President Macky Sall, has tagged African Summit on Food Sovereignty and Resilience. And for good reasons. I'm sure many of you saw the video or the pictures of President Macky Sall sitting down opposite President Putin of Russia, asking him to allow food to be exported from Russia and Ukraine to Africa. It doesn't get that bad. One thing that distinguishes us as human beings is dignity. And what is dignity? Dignity is the anger you feel when you are treated below what you are, or the shame you feel when you have done something below who you are, or the pride you feel when you have done well. That's dignity. But Macky Sall, I'm sure he must have felt lower than a human being that day, because here you are with a continent with millions of hectares of land, arable land, rivers, able bodies, sunshine, begging a country at war to supply you food. Meanwhile, you are at peace. So President Macky Sall told our president that enough is enough. So he has called this African Summit on Food Sovereignty and Resilience, which will be held January 25th, 27 in Dakar. It will bring together 17 heads of states, multilateral development banks, the Rome-based agricultural organization, IFAD, FAO, World Food Program, national and international research centers, private sector, central bank governors, ministers of agriculture, all 110 ministers of agriculture and finance, and also development partners to develop clear action plans to achieve zero hunger in Africa by the year 2030. For that meeting, I'm very pleased to announce to you that a successful model of TAAT compacts will be the core and the major outcome of the Dakar 2 meeting. The meeting has adopted what we call Country Food and Agriculture Delivery Compact, that is modeled on the TAAT compacts. These compacts will first of all state clear self-sufficiency targets for specific agricultural commodities, a roadmap to reach the targets, which includes seed systems, production, market access, extension, policy reforms, result-based financing, key partners, and performance contracts. These are all catchwords that you all know in TAAT. But the most important thing about this compact is that we're also going to have people who are going to put money on the table, both public, private, and other institutional lenders. The bank and President Macky Sall has decided that if there's any time that Africa can get it right, it's now, because never let a crisis go to waste. I want to thank the TAAT ecosystem for doing so well that you can inspire an entire continent to dare to feed itself, to say enough. We cannot afford to have 238 million children going to bed hungry. Enough. But in closing, TAAT 2 is coming at a time of great challenge. It has been called the 4 C's: COVID-19, climate change, conflict, and cost of living. These 4 C's have convulsed the continent. Africa is more indebted today than it was 10 years ago. Africa is hungrier than it was 10 years ago. Africa has actually had negative growth compared to a couple of years ago. We have been taxed now as TAAT to help our beloved continent raise local food production and feed itself. We have been taxed to modernize the sector and make it private sector-led, market-based, and also a sector that can improve the lives of rural populations and feed our people. Let me tell you a short story here. I'm sure you all know that I like telling stories. The short story was, I went to Ethiopia with Solomon, and that time Bishop was not there. With Solomon in I think Bishop was there, 2018. We went to the Awash River Valley. And we were told then, this was 2018, we were told then that Ethiopia was going into lowland irrigated wheat because of the new heterogram varieties that had been developed, and was being disseminated by TAAT. So, we met the farmers. They told us that they started with 5,000, but this year they were going to We went around February. This year they were going to get to 20,000. So it sounded very impressive. I went back again in 2022, February. I went with our new VP, Beth Dunford, who is also a powerhouse when it comes to agricultural development. She's passionate. She wants to see things happen. And we went again with Solomon and went with Kebishaw. And the story was different. They had now achieved 645,000 hectares of lowland irrigated wheat. Ethiopia had increased its wheat production by 1.5 million tons. Ethiopia this year did not do the government procurement of wheat. It was amazing. So, Beth is a sociologist. That's my VP. So she asked the farmer, and I'm really happy that she went with us. She asked the farmer, so what were you doing before you started growing wheat? And why have you suddenly started growing so much wheat? The farmer told her a very simple thing. You see, I've never met a farmer that cannot count. I never met a farmer. All farmers, no matter how poor or illiterate they are, they can count. They can count money. So the farmer told her, it's easy. When we are doing vegetables, in a very good year, we make about $1,000, $1,500 per hectare. That's all our income. And some years, there's too much vegetables, so everything crashes. And we all know how this happens. And we make no money. But since we switched to wheat, we have been making $3,000 per hectare. The guy said, if you need school fees for your children, if you need money for burial, just do it. You will get money. It is guaranteed you will get money. The market is there. The government is giving 80% credit for inputs. There's extension. There is irrigated land. There are rivers. That was a very impactful story. That story told me three things. Number one, African farmers can feed their nations. First thing. Second thing, African farmers, they see opportunity. And if you give them technologies, give them water, give them credit, they will make the best of it, and they will become rich and wealthy and successful. And three, African farmers can have scalable models for agriculture. Now I'm talking of smallholder farmers now. Guys, I can tell you one thing, that TAAT has opened our eyes to see that Africa indeed can feed itself. And that Africa indeed can become a net food exporter as long as we have the right technologies, have the right support from public and private financiers, and we also have the right policies in place, policies to give them credit to develop land. I know my 15 minutes is almost finished, but let me just very quickly say what TAAT 2, our expectation at the bank, what TAAT 2 will do. TAAT 2 will work with NARS, like in Ethiopia, to assemble technology packages and extension materials for vigorous and aggressive outreach campaigns that will provide hands-on training and good agronomic practices to farmers, lead farmers, and also other key agents of an extension to improve crop productivity. This is what I want TAAT 2 to do. Work with the NARS and get these things out to farmers. Yesterday, Rob and I went to this rice project. And you see, it's like 540 hectares, and the bank is still working to put the irrigation and all that. But what I saw, I told Rob, I was very sad. On one side, I saw farmer field schools, beautiful grain, 95% field grain, beautiful. On the other side, I saw terrible fields, weedy, no fertilizer, horrible. I said, Rob, I told Rob, Rob, how is this possible? That in the same location, you have these beautiful farmer field schools, and then you have 5 tons of rice a hectare, then you have this terrible field that probably will yield 1 ton or 1.5 tons. I want TAAT 2 to work with the NARS to assemble those technology packages and make sure that every farmer, I won't go to any field and see that kind of a thing ever again, every farmer is able to use it. Number 2, I want TAAT to provide technical assistance to African countries in Dakar on how these compacts can be set up. This country food and agricultural development can be set up. And so how African countries can actually succeed like Ethiopia and other people have succeeded. I also want the TAAT team to also help us review and recommend policies that will achieve the targets of Feed Africa. I know you're already doing it for SEED, AATF, and Francis and his team, but I want us to look at it even more closely. Then I want us to continue to demonstrate the good technologies and the packages. One thing I have learned from Ethiopia was that before you saw that fantastic story in Ethiopia, people, EARI and Sasakawa, they had worked for many, many years, testing different technologies, planting rates, water management, frequency of irrigation. And when the new seeds came in, they were ready. You cannot have seeds without the production package. The fertilizer, the cultural practices, all those things that go together. It has to be one big package. So I really want us to continue our demo trials of the best packages. I also want us to provide technical assistance in organizing farmers. The beauty of Ethiopia is that farmers are organized into clusters. And each cluster also of 100 hectares has one extension agent. So if you go to Ethiopia, you think you are in Nebraska. All the wheat have the same height. Beautiful crop. All of them the same height because the extension agent makes sure that every farmer obeys, the basic rules. To me, that's the beauty of what TAAT can do. If you organize people, working with the governments, of course, organize people, and then tell them exactly what works. Lastly, I know that you had this training yesterday on fiduciary management, and procurement. I trust you put all that training to good use so that TAAT continues to obey all the bank rules and then work with the bank ecosystem to get things done. At today's launch of TAAT 2, we are at the crossroads to Feed Africa, or to continue as a country that is hungry. The crossroads to have healthy children who will grow up to realize that God-given potential in those of their nations, or stunted children and economies, God forbid. We are at the crossroads to transform rural economies or to continue as islands of extreme poverty. You are twice likely to be poor also if you live in rural Africa. We are at the crossroads of lower food prices or households able to feed themselves. We are at the crossroads of wealth for all or rural areas, with a widening gap of haves and have-nots. We are being called upon to help our continent choose the path of prosperity. I pray we will not fail our motherland. God willing, TAAT to play a central role in unleashing Africa's food potential. Thank you very much.